Hey y'all, I am so super excited to be here. I am with Jordyn from Working Aussies Homestead, and I just love these people. I love them so much, I have actually decided to come and spend my birthday with them. I love her, and I love her husband Josh. I love just what they do, what they stand for. I love their transparency, and I'm here today. I just want to get a little bit of, just to get their story, because it's just really, really neat. So, Jordyn, just tell me a little bit about how did you and Josh meet?
We met in college out in Kansas. We had known each other because it's a small college, and so beginning of our senior year, we had gone to a movie. The movie theater in town had $2 Tuesdays, so you could go and see a movie for $2 for all of the college students. And so we had gone to the same movie, and he saw me, and he had a puppy at the time named Wyatt, and he said, "Hey, you should come over and see Wyatt." And so, me being the dog lover, yeah, absolutely, I haven't seen him in a long time. And so I went over and saw Wyatt, and about a month later we started dating. And 2 months after that,
smooth move on Josh's part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you're single, go get you a dog or a puppy.
Grace, you're too young for this, don't worry.
After we graduated from college, we actually moved to New York. Very much city people. We were 2 hours north of the city, of New York City, but we still lived in an apartment. We only lived in New York for 6 months because we found out that we could not afford to live there. And so Josh found a better job, making about twice as much up in Durham. So we moved to Raleigh, and we were only about 15 minutes from his new job. You know, the most I had growing wise was some.
Nice. So let me get this straight. They go from New York to Raleigh. So you hear that, Grace? They sound like city people to me.
Yeah. So, how did you, end up with a homestead?
Yes, how did you end up here?
I mean, from New York to Raleigh to a homestead?
From the city to the homestead, last March, our company that we were working for in downtown Raleigh decided they were going to purchase land or purchase property in Dunn to move their shop to Dunn. We worked for an automotive restoration shop, and our lease was going to come up at the end of September, and so we knew that we needed to find a place to live, and our boss actually asked us if we would move closer to the shop because everybody else still lives up in Raleigh. And so we said, yeah, sure. So in March we started looking up. I just kind of wanted to maybe do some organic gardening, and we started looking on YouTube. And 2 months later, in May, one night we got home from getting groceries, and I was rolling up our bags from it, and we were having a conversation, and it wasn't an argument, but it wasn't a good conversation, and I suddenly couldn't talk. And Josh tells this story a little bit differently, but you know, he's a sassy man, so he just thought I was done talking to him.
Oh.
And just walked out of the room. And then he comes back and he goes, "What, you gonna say anything?"
Oh no.
And I can't talk, and I start crying because I'm freaking out a little bit, because I go to say words and it just comes out a mumbled mess. And so him being sassy grabs a piece of paper and goes, "Oh, you don't want to speak to me? Why don't you write it down?" And I wrote down, "I can't talk."
Typical man.
And so I write that down, and he goes, "You're kidding me." And so he ends up calling his mom, who's a medical technician, and she says, "You need to take her to the emergency room right now." And so we get to the emergency room, and all of the nurses think I'm faking it. You know, we have x-rays done. We did a CT scan. We did an MRI of my brain. And all of this, they did several hours in between each test. And so by the time we got to the CT scan, all of my symptoms went away. However, the doctor was able to figure out that from the absolute center of my body on my right side was completely numb compared to my left. And a week later at work, at that time at work, I did a lot with numbers and the accounting side, and I have always been really good at knowing numbers, being able to look at a number and remember it an hour later. A week later, I was having a lot of memory loss. I was having a lot of slurred speech, and I would go to write something down and I couldn't write. The nice thing is our boss had a family friend who was a neurologist out in Charlotte. That's 3 hours from Raleigh. And so we went to see her and we started testing. And within that month, we probably drove to Charlotte about 8 times. Wow. And to Winston-Salem a few times as well. I had, in that time we did 5 MRIs. I had an EEG, an ambulatory EEG, which is where I wore a bunch of wires on my head for 3 days. We did lots of blood work. I had a spinal tap to just figure out what was going on. And a month later, the day after my birthday, so coming up almost a year now, we determined that I had multiple sclerosis. We had already been looking at organic gardening. At the time, Josh was reading a book by Dr. Grundy called The Longevity Paradox. And it talks about his specific diet that focuses on specific health benefits. And in the book, he talked about how he put 102 MS patients on his diet for 6 months, and 95 of them became 100% symptom free.
Wow. Did y'all hear that?
That's awesome.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and it led us to come across Justin Rhodes and permaculture homesteading.
Yeah.
And we talked about where we could grow and raise so much of our own food, even on a small piece of land. August, we broke ground on our garden, and in September, we got our first batch of meat chickens.
One thing that Jordyn said, well, let me just back up. There's so much of her story that actually resonates with me, because there's a similar story that the whole reason I actually got into the whole organic farming and the homesteading was through health problems. And there's one thing that I don't think people realize is people look at, the people who are trying to go out there and grow their organic food and raise all of their food and just grow the food and raise it. But those people who are trying to do that, if you go and ask them, why are you doing that, instead of, oh my gosh, they're crazy, oh my goodness, those people are nuts, they're raising their own food and moving their chickens, and they're not spraying, they want to do everything organically. They have a story. If you will sit and listen, they have a story, and it is probably, I'm not saying all the time, but a lot of time, people like this that I've encountered, they have a story of some kind of major health challenge that made them change. And when they decided to go and change their ways and their eating habits and to eat healthier and to, try to eat organically, guess what? They started getting better, and I just think that's awesome.
So that was an awesome story. So now we're gonna go outside and see how I actually bring in that story to life.
Well, but you have to raise it, because the lettuce here should be taller, but I didn't raise it in time, so it's been slower, but it's starting to grow up now, because we're around week 2, I think, and it should be almost ready to go outside.
This is all weeds, but but we've got, these are onions back here growing, and then basil, and what is this one supposed to be? Chives. So there's one chive.
I love this whole setup y'all got.
And then this is kale.
And y'all are jamming on the kale out there. So guys, we're actually outside looking at everything that they have done thus far, and I am just blown away at everything they've done in such a short amount of time. What would you guys say has been the most challenging thing, or more challenging than you were thinking it would be?
I think the biggest learning curve was all of the things that can go wrong in the garden. You know, our very first garden that we planted back in October, that we started in August, did not do well at all. And it was because soil health was such a big thing. We didn't add any amendments, we didn't add anything, and we barely got anything off of the 250 plants that we put in the garden. That's our biggest challenge, was just the learning curve on the garden.
I'd say the biggest challenge for me is just figuring out a schedule to plant stuff, because like succession planting sounds really easy until you realize that it doesn't actually, well, depending on how the soil health is, it doesn't actually take 32 days to get kale. It might take 48, it might take 27, and so you've got to figure out, do I plant 2 weeks away or do I plant 4 weeks away, because you don't want to have an overflow of just stuff you're not going to eat. So we've been trying to like really battle that too.
When you're talking about soil health, can y'all tell me what are just a few things that y'all did and other people, what can you do to improve your soil health?
So to kind of go over it quickly, we ran chickens on the top. Well, first thing you want to do is you want to do a soil test, just see what you're deficient in. If you're not deficient in a lot of minerals, then you don't really need to amend the soil. If you're just deficient in like a grow nitrogen kind of thing, you can run chickens on it like we did. We've run pigs on top of it, anything like that. The other problem that we had was just getting that top layer loose enough to grow what we really wanted to grow. So we've forked it, or broad forked it. We've tilled a little bit, but basically just amending, adding compost, running the chickens on it, and just aeration. That's kind of where we've grown our soil to where it is now.
I think another challenge would be also finding the sweet spot for raising chickens. We've come across, you know, some different challenges that aren't mainstream, like feather plucking, you know, and just sudden death in some of the chickens. Our first batch was the absolute dream batch. We didn't lose any. They all did great. They all had healthy weights. And the second batch, and now our third batch, you know, we've had a lot of issues with feed and heat, yeah, that we didn't have issues with before. So learning curves on everything for sure.
Another exciting thing that they have, which I think is awesome, they have cooney pigs, which are a lot different than like normal your standard breed pigs. So like, I know that they're a lot different, but what makes them special? Like, what makes them different?
So we picked coonies because we did not really want to get pigs that were going to root a lot, and coonies are a grazing breed, so they would much rather eat grass than make a big muddy mess. And so we actually went to a workshop that she put on, and we fell in love with these girls, and the next day we brought them home. And we have not regretted that decision since. She's expecting babies anytime, but we're so excited because this is a breed that we would love to have on our property from here on out and raise cooney pigs.
I just want to thank Josh and Jordyn. Thank y'all for letting us come over here. Thank you for letting us do this interview, and I hope that y'all enjoyed the interview. And if you want to know more about Josh and Jordyn at Working Aussies Homestead, go look in the link below, and that will be their YouTube link and their Facebook and Instagram link. And these guys, y'all, they are such a wealth of information. I have learned so much from them, and you can too.
And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button and the notification bell.
Thanks for watching.